Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, welcome everybody. I'm teacher Nathan from Writers at Work, and today we'll be looking at Nanyang Primary School's P5 exam paper from 2022. Without further ado, let's start with grammar first. Question 1. We dash for almost 3 hours. Let's take a rest, Mrs. Lee said to her daughters. So over here, we are looking at tenses. First keyword is we, which tells me it is a plural subject. And the next keywords are almost 3 hours. So it's this activity began in the past and it is still continuing now. Alright. With that in mind, let's take a look at the options. Was and were hiking. These two are in the past continuous tense. This means that my action was continuing sometime in the past. For example, the children were eating dinner in the evening. So we don't have that specific time period, 6 p.m. or is it 9 p.m. So generally during this period of time, which is evening, certain activity was conducted. Next is had been hiking. This is known as the past perfect continuous. This means that my action was ongoing when second action took place. Lastly, I have been hiking, which is in the present perfect tense. This means that my action began in the past and is still continuing in the present. So if you observe this question, we are interested in something that has been ongoing for some time. So we will use my present perfect tense. And it's also have, which is for plural subjects. So my answer will be number 4. Now, moving on, let's take a look at question 2 now. Sally has won the singing contest before. Dash. So we are interested in a question tag kind of question here. And it is rather straightforward. Let me zoom in on my positive component. The negative would be hasn't. Okay. Now, moving on, let's take a look at question 3. Mr. Matthew, Dash I talked to yesterday, is my new basketball coach. So we are interested in what we call relative pronouns here. Okay, so we use pronouns to just replace your nouns. Your nouns are like your people, your objects, your animals. Okay, then we need to look at the keyword Mr. Matthew. And you also can observe that I talk to him. So the person who is doing the action is the subject. So I is the subject of the sentence. And Mr. Matthew here is the object of the sentence. Okay, talk is my verb. As such, when I want to replace Mr. Matthew with a relative pronoun, it needs to be in the object form. Okay, now let's look at the keywords. Let's look at the options. First one is who. Who is in the subject form. Next, we have which. This is used for non-humans, so we do not even consider it here. Whom here is in the object form, and whose is in the possessive form. So because we are interested to replace the object of the sentence, the answer would be whom, number 3. Okay, so good job, Vermilion. Okay. Now, let's look at some example sentences to learn to learn number 1 and number 4. The man who has a dog went overseas. Okay, for this sentence here, you can see that, okay, maybe not has, who owns a dog. So it's very clear cut. So you can see my verb is owns, and therefore the man who is engaging in this verb or this action is my subject. And I use the word who to replace the subject of the sentence. All right. Now let's take a look at whose. Ali, whose wallet was stolen, called the police. So over here, you can see that there's an object here. And this object is owned by my the subject of the sentence. So it's owned by Ali. So we want to emphasize this ownership here. That's why we use the word whose. Okay. So I hope this is clearer to everybody. All right, let's take a look at question 4 now. Neither Norman nor his brothers dash keen to attend the upcoming concert. First thing, brothers is in the plural form. Give me a moment. What's happening? Okay, give me a moment. Why is it not writing? Okay. Let's try this again. Okay, sorry for the technical delay. Okay, let's take a look here. His brothers. So this is in plural form. Okay, I hope this is clearer for everyone. Thanks for pointing out Vermilion. Next thing is upcoming concert. So this is a future event, which means that we will use present tense. Alright, so these two clues already point me to one answer, which is number 2. Okay, moving on. I saw Peter dash while I was walking past his bedroom. So over here, we're interested in tenses again. First keyword is you saw. So this is an action. It's a verb. It's an action word or a verb, right? Okay, let's take a look at some of the options first before we come to the answer. Cries. This is singular. Sorry, this is present and plural. Singular and present. Next is crying. This is in the continuous form. Continuous form means that the action is ongoing as you speak. Next we have is crying, which is in the present continuous. This means that my action was ongoing at the time of speaking. Lastly, I have was crying, which is in the past continuous tense. This means that my action was ongoing sometime in the past. Now, when we see this verb that is already present in the sentence, verb number one, and subsequently we have second verb here, we need to apply a rule called the verbs of perception. This means that when I have two verbs, number one and number two, my second verb needs to be in the base or ing form. Okay, therefore, the answer that we can give is number two. Okay, so very good, Nikish. This will be the answer. Okay. Okay, I just give everyone some time to take in the information before we move on to the next few questions. Okay. Okay, moving on. Let's take a look at question 6 now. Not only dash John win the race, but he also broke his own national record. So over here, we're interested in tenses. First keyword to observe, broke. This is in the past tense. So when we zoom in on our options, I'm only interested in my past tense. Okay. Do here is in present tense for plural subjects. Does is also in present tense, but for singular subjects. Then we have did. Did is for the past tense. And done here is in the past participle. That means one action occurred before a second action took place. And both are in the past. Alright, so we can see that we are only interested in past tense. So my only answer is number 2. Okay. These kind of questions are quite straightforward. So when we do them in an exam, you need to score full marks for these kind of questions. Because these are the things that we can control. Okay. Now moving on, let's look at question 7. As you study, you will not pass the test. Mr. Tan reminded his students. So we are interested in conjunctions here. Conjunctions are basically your linking words. So let's take a look. There's a criteria here, study, not pass your test. So this is like some kind of condition. Then this is like your result or your consequence. So when we want to put forth that kind of condition or criteria, you need to use the word unless. Okay, so it's number 4. Now, what about the other options? Well, if here is for hypothetical situation. So for example, if it was raining, mother would remind me to bring an umbrella. So I'm showing that when a hypothetical situation occur, some other actions will also take place. Next, since is for time period. Since the start of the year, Mr. Tan has been walking to work. While is used to show concurrent activities. While brother was sleeping, sister went to the coffee shop to eat her lunch. Okay. Now, moving on. Question 8. The nurses have been taught what to do dash a patient look unwell. So here we're looking at modal auxiliary verbs. These are your words to show or convey a certain meaning. For example, a preference, obligation, etc. Okay. Now looking at the keywords, we are looking at how the nurses, so this is a very formal training and is taught. Okay, so very formal context. And they need to do something when a patient looks unwell. So this is also quite serious, right? And your nurses are trained and they need to do something. They are the healthcare workers, right? So they need to, by hook or by crook, save lives, right? Now, with that in mind, let's take a look at some of the options. Must here shows obligation. I must go to school tomorrow. Could here means that you need to make a request or offer. Would here is used to offer advice. So let's say number 2. Could you please bring the card for me? So I'm asking you to do something in a favor. For would, I would stop the thief if I saw him running towards me. It's used to show your opinion towards something. Okay. Then we also have should. Should shows the need to do something. And what what user not found has correctly pointed out, this will be our answer. Because the nurses have a job to do to take care of the patients. So it's a very formal role, also very serious. Alright? Alright, moving on. Let's take a look at question 9 now. My family and Dash will not be going to the party next week. So over here, we're interested in personal pronouns. Okay? And what we need to know is we need to identify where's the verb first. Going, or in this case not going, right? So when when these two actions here, my family and I, correct? Sorry. My family and this thing over here are engaging in the actions. This means these two are your subject, right? Therefore, when you want to use personal pronouns, it is to replace the subject. So it's like a substitute like that, right? So I need to choose a subject personal pronoun. And the only answer that we have is number 1, I. Okay? Now, for everyone's benefit, let's also understand when to use the other personal pronouns here. We have me. Me is used as an object personal pronoun. Okay? So you can say mother, scolded, brother, and me. So you can see here, my verb is always together with my subject, and brother and this person here is the object of the sentence. So instead of putting my name here, I can use me. Okay. My here is for possess. Is in the possessive form. Okay. I'm sorry. Number 4, mine with the ne is in the possessive form. For number 3 here, mine with the my, this is known as the determiner. So this is used to emphasize that something belongs to the speaker. Okay, so while the use of number 3 and number 4 are quite close, the rule of thumb is mine here is usually at the end of the sentence. Okay, so you could say the bag of markers belong to teacher Nathan. These markers are mine. You can see that the mine here is used for emphasis. Okay, while your my mine is used quite often. You will use it almost every day, right? My mother and I, my family. Okay. Now let's look at the last question. As Mrs. Raja was not familiar with the students in the school team, she had dash say over who will represent the school for the competition. So over here, we're interested in determiners. These are your words to show quantity. So you can see here that she had some kind of say. Say here is uncountable. So we need to look at uncountable options. The first one, few. Few is used for countable. There are few parking lots left. Little is used for uncountable. Little effort. He put in little effort in his homework. Many is countable. There are many boys in the school. Several is also used for countable. There are several cars in the car park now. Okay, so our answer is quite clear cut. It will be number 2. Okay, I'll just give everyone some time to take in the information before we move on to our vocabulary section. Okay. Now, if you have questions, please feel free to type them in the comment section and I'll answer them. Alright? And if you know the answer also, please feel free to type them in the comment section. I'll tell you whether it's correct or not correct. Okay? Now, moving on, let's take a look at our vocabulary. When Aaron saw many cockroaches crawling around in the classroom, he was dash and immediately sprayed insecticide at them. So over here, the clue we need to identify is there are many cockroaches crawling around. So this is something that is usually very disgusting and probably very shocking. Okay? When you identify that emotion, then you'll know which of the option to choose. The first one is appalled, which means horrified and very, very shocked. Next, doubtful, which means that you are uncertain about something. Resentful means that you are bitter or you have some kind of indignation for being unfairly treated. So for example, your CCA teacher gave some other boy more opportunities than you, so you may feel resentful towards her. Lastly is indifferent. Indifferent means that you have no interest or you are unconcerned. Okay, so you can see that he immediately sprayed insecticide. That means he was very concerned about the cleanliness. So definitely indifferent is out. Resentful that there's nothing that was wrong, or there's no unfair treatment here. Doubtful, he was certain about killing the insects. That's why he sprayed the insecticide. So this leaves us with our option 1, and that's the answer, to show that he was very, very shocked, disgusted. Okay. Now moving on, let's take a look at question 12 now. I don't have time. Please dash and tell me what happened in the classroom, Mrs. Lim said to Shirley. So first thing is you don't have much time. That means you want to get the information quickly, right? Let's take a look at the options. Play by ear means you decide how to deal with a situation as it develops, rather than acting according to plans. Okay? Cut to the chase means that you talk about important points. Run around in circles means that you are very active, but few results. Beat around the bush, that means avoid talking about what is important. Okay, so this question is really very clear cut. You don't have much time, so we need to talk about only the important information quickly. So the answer would be number 2. Please cut the chase. Okay. Now let's move on to question 13 now. Mikey's classmates are all afraid of getting into a quarrel with him, as he never dashed during an argument. So we are looking at how he doesn't want to compromise. So no compromise during an argument. That means he doesn't want to discuss or say that he admit that he's wrong. Okay. Now let's take a look at the phrasal verbs here. The first one is backs up. Backs up means that you support somebody, you back somebody up. Next is back out, which means that you decide not to do something you agree. So usually we'll say you back out of a plan. So for example, you're supposed to meet your classmates for lunch, but you back out. That means suddenly you say you don't want. Next, you have back into. Back into here means that you move something backwards into something else. Lastly, we have back down. Back down means that you admit you are wrong or have been defeated. So for this question here, we are looking at how during arguments, this person called Mikey doesn't want to compromise or admit that he was wrong. So the closest phrasal verb option we have would be to back down. Okay, so like what? Who's this? Or Jiao say, yeah, correct. The answer is number 4. Okay, so good job, Irene Ho 566 also. Now let's take a look at question 14 now. Despite her initial dash, Hannah decided to overcome her fear of water and join her friends in the pool. So over here, we are interested in that kind of fear. Okay, some kind of fear. And you can see over here, she decided to overcome it, right? So let's take a look at some options. Inhibition means that you feel self-conscious, unable to act naturally or in a relaxed way. Restriction means something is limiting you. Next, we have obsession, which means that you something or somebody you think about all the time. Lastly, justification means that you want to show somebody that something is right or reasonable. Okay, so for this question here, we're interested in how she had the fear which stopped her from doing something. Okay, therefore the closest answer we have would be number 1, which means that you are unable to perform something naturally. Okay, so good job, Jiao. Come, let's take a look at question 15 now. The pilot managed to dash a crisis when the plane engine failed by landing the plane safely. So over here, this is the clue. So he managed to avoid this dangerous situation, right? A crisis. Let's take a look at the keywords. Alter here means you change the character or the composition, that is the make-up of something. So example, you can say you alter your diet. That means you change the amount of proteins you eat, for example. Avert means you prevent undesirable consequences. Divulge means you make known sensitive information. While deviate means that you depart from established plans. So over here, we're looking at a crisis, which is something that is not welcome, is dangerous. Okay, so we will use avert to tell people that you don't want this kind of dangerous situation. Okay, so thank you, Jiao and Irene host 566 for following very closely with me. Now, just like everybody to remember, when doing vocabulary, it is always good to highlight your keywords. This slows down your thought process and also allows you to have the kind of answer that you want in mind. Okay, so when I'm sharing with you my thought process, when you do this paper in exam, it should be much faster. All right. Okay, I just give everyone some time to take in the information before we move on to vocabulary cloaks. If anyone has questions, please feel free to ask them in our comment section. Okay, moving on, let's take a look at vocab cloaks. So how I do it is, I'll read through the text first and I will explain the meanings of the underlined words. Once we have understanding of the text, then we'll take a look at the options given. Okay. Thomas Alva Edison was born on 11 February 1847 in Million, Ohio. In his 84 years, Edison acquired a record number of 1,093 licenses. Acquire means you buy or you obtain something for oneself. And these licenses to exclusively make and sell his inventions. Exclusive means that it is limited to a single person or a selected group. Okay, so he was a driving force behind innovations like the phonograph, light bulb, and the motion picture cameras. And he's known as the Wizard of Menlo Park. He did some of his most renowned work in the New Jersey town. Renowned here means that it's known or talked about by many people. In addition to his flair for innovation, Edison was also a successful businessman. Flair here means that you have a special aptitude, that means you have a special skill or the ability to do something. Edison was proficient at marketing his innovations to the public. Proficient here means that you are competent or you are skilled at something. Okay. Now, with a understanding of the meanings, let's take a look at the options. First one is acquired, which means that you buy or obtain something. Looking at our options, we have bought. Bought means you obtain something in exchange for payment. Grab means that you grasp or you seize something suddenly. Then we have invented, which means that you create or design something that did not exist before. Lastly, we have obtain, which means that you acquire or you secure something. So from our text here, we realize that acquired has that meaning that you secure or you get hold of some object for yourself. So the closest option that we have is obtain. Okay, number 2. Now look at number 17. Exclusively, which means that something is limited to single person or a very small group of people. Okay. All right. Option 1 is solely. Solely means not involving anything or anyone else. Merely is used to emphasize something you say is not significant. We also have partially, that means limited extent of something. And separately, which means something is not together. Alright, so for this question here, the answer would be solely. Okay, number 1. Why? Because exclusive means that it's only limited to either one person or small group. Okay, that means not a lot of people will be involved. For 教 it will not be. Are you referring to question 17? Separately has a meaning that is not together. I could have 2 very large groups of people and they are separate. So it is not very specific enough. Okay, that's why we use solely here, because solely has this idea that it's like only one person. Okay. Now, looking at question 18 now, renowned. Renowned means something is very known or very popular. Okay. So let's take a look. First one, famous means that is known by many people. Expected means something is likely to happen, or you can say anticipated is another synonym. Anticipated, similar to expected, it means that something is probable or is likely to happen. Lastly, we have extravagant, which means you lack restraint, that means no control in spending money or resources. So we're interested in a word that is renowned, which means something is famous, known by many people or popular. Okay, so our answer would be number 1. Alright, moving on to question 19. Flair. Flair means you have a special skill or ability to do something. Let's take a look at our options. The first one is talent. Talent means you have a natural skill. Next, we have vision, which means that you have the ability to plan or think ahead. An attitude is a way of thinking or feeling about something. Alright. Lastly, passion here means that something has you have a strong, uncontrollable emotion. If you have a passion for teaching, for example, that means you really want to teach. It's a very strong desire to do something. Now, we are interested in aptitude or a very special skill that you have. So that word to describe it would be talent. All right. So number 1. Lastly, we have the word proficient, which means competent or that you are very skilled in a particular activity. So we have option 1, which is skillful. Skillful means that you are good at doing something. We also have inefficient, which means not achieving maximum productivity. Persuasive means that you are good at making somebody do something through reasoning or temptation. So we usually will describe salesmen as persuasive because they will convince you to buy something. Lastly is complacent, which means that you are satisfied with your own abilities and you don't think you need to try harder. Alright? Alright, so in this case, you want to show that somebody has that kind of skill, right? So, or basically, the word is proficient. That means you are very good at something. So we will use the word skillful. Okay, so good job, Xiao Huang Na. Yeah. Okay, so our answer will be number 1. Okay, I'll just give everyone some time to take in the information here before we move on to our grammar close. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comment section. All right. All right. If there are no further questions, then we should go on to the next section. Okay. All right. In a 2018 study, a group of people were asked which of the five senses they would miss the most if they lost it. The sense of smell was picked, dash only 2% of the respondents. So we're interested in the people who picked, that means who chose the sense of smell, right? And this is basically the source. So who picked it? The respondents picked it, right? So we'll say picked by only 2% of the people. Okay. 2 years later, from all dash the world, ear, nose, and throat doctors saw dash unusual number of patients who had lost their sense of smell with the outbreak of COVID-19. So when we are looking at the world here, which is a very huge place, and the word all means we are looking at people from many different places. We'll always use the word around, alright, to show the extent of something. And over here, we're just interested in this trend, right? Which is an unusual number of patients. And this is just a singular one trend. So we will say an unusual amount of patients. Okay? Suddenly, greater attention was given to dash sense of smell. See, over here, we're just interested in this attention given to one element here. And it's very specific. Alright? So we will say to the sense of smell. Why do we use the here and not a? Because at the start here, they already highlight this sense of smell, which is something that is important. Alright? That's why we will use the word the. The is an article. Okay? Researchers soon found out that a loss of smell was one dash the main symptoms of COVID. So when we talk about one, and this is just part of the many symptoms, we are trying to show that kind of relationship here. That's why we'll use the word of, one of the many symptoms. Okay? Some health experts dash proposed using smell tests instead of temperature checks to screen people for the virus. So over here, we are looking at how someone was very dramatic and proposed to use this test instead of the normal temperature checks. So you want to emphasize that somebody gave a very interesting or perhaps a very good suggestion. So we will say some health experts even propose. Okay. However, if a person's sense of smell is not as sharp, dash it used to be there is no cause of panic. So when we want to select an answer for question 35, we need to observe there's a word as dash dash as. Then over here is an adjective to describe the sense of smell, right? So we always, when there's an adjective in between two other words, will always be as sharp or as loud as. Okay. The sense of smell naturally declines dash age. So we are looking at how there are two different ideas that are complementary. That means they happen together, which is smell and age. So as one increases, the other will also increase. The ability will decrease, right? So to link these two ideas together, we would say naturally declines with. Okay, this is to show how two similar ideas and their relationship. This is one more reason dash urge smokers to quit. So you can see that the reason here has a certain purpose, right? The purpose is stated clearly for us to say no to smoking. So when we want to show a purpose, we will use the preposition to. You want to do something, right? On the other hand, pregnant women have especially sensitive noses. One theory is that the increased sensitivity dash the cause of pregnancy is the body's way of protecting mothers from ingesting toxins. Now, we are looking at the cause of pregnancy, which is a time period here. It's a quite a long time period, right? So we will use the word during to show this extended period of time. All right. Okay, I'll just give everyone some time to take in the information I just shared before we move on to our next section. Okay, let's go on to our editing. The polar landscape is changing. Polar ice is melting faster than it has in the past. Ice sheets and glaciers always melt a little in summer. However, the winter snows and cold temperatures usually replenish whatever has melted away. So here we are looking at a spelling error, usually. In recent years, this balance has dash apart. So instead of fall, we'll use the word fallen. Because the word has must always be paired with your past participle. Alright? So what this means is this balance of the ice sheets has been the balance has been decreasing from the past until now at the point that we are talking. Alright? More ice melts in summer dash it forms in winter. So over here, this more here already tells me we are looking at comparison. So more melts in summer than it forms in winter. Alright? Most of this melted water finds its ways into the oceans, causing an rise dash sea level. So we are interested in the rise of a particular subject, particular thing, right? Which is your sea level. So we always say there is a rise in something. Over the past 20 years, sea level has risen more than 25 millimeters per year. You may think that this quantity is insignificant. Okay, this is a spelling error. But the effects of even small increases are immense. Another spelling error. Storm waves around coastal areas become more catastrophic. So let's take a look at this very interesting word. Catastrophic means more and more damaging. Right? Flooding increases and animals lose more of their habitats. Global warming dash the answer to why ice is melting faster than before. So we are only interested in one phenomena, right? This is singular. So we'll use the word is instead of are. Alright, let's move on. Since the 1800s, the world dash grown hotter at a rate of nearly 0.2 degrees Celsius every 10 years. So again, we are looking at a singular subject here. So it will be the world has grown hotter. The surge in temperatures is largely due to human activity. Spelling error again. Like the persistent burning of fossil fuels. This is how you spell persistent. And the response is simple. Okay. Response here is a different word form. So when you respond to something, it's a verb, it's an action. But when we look at this action or these many actions as a whole, we are looking at a noun, right? That's why we'll change to response. All right, and with that, we have come to the end of our editing. I'll just give everybody some time to take in the information before we move on to our vocabulary close. All right, let's take a look at our vocabulary close now. our comprehension close now. Emmanuel was exhausted. He had been cycling dash days. The effort of propelling dash became more difficult with each turn of the pedal. So we are looking at how he has been cycling, and this activity has been done for many days, right? It's a prolonged activity. So we will say cycling 4 days. The effort of propelling dash become more difficult. So when you are cycling here, you will propel in a certain direction, right? So we'll say you propel forward. Emmanuel pedaled using his left leg. His right one was shortened dash to a missing shin bone at birth. So over here, there's a reason for a particular activity or particular outcome, right? So when you want to link the reason to my outcome here, we will use the word due to. Okay, so Emmanuel was on a mission to cycle across the width dash Ghana, West Africa. So this width here is related to my place. So to link the width and the place together to show this relationship, we use of. He completed the 644-kilometer cycling trek in 10 days. People experiencing disability were not given many opportunities and were dashed down upon in Emmanuel's home country. So you could see here, not given many opportunities. So it tells you that people didn't look up to them. So there probably was not any there wasn't much respect for them, right? So when you do not have respect, the phrasal verb that we are interested in is looked down upon. Okay, so this tells you a clue on what to fill in here. So these two is a phrasal verb. He wanted to raise awareness on how they were dash. So this looking down on somebody and not given many opportunities. This shows that they were how they were, you could say, treated. Or you could say how they were perceived or seen. It's like your opinion towards people of disabilities. He thought of many ways to do so. However, he knew Dash could be more influential than the media. So the most influential thing is media, right? So we would say nothing can be more influential because this is the highest something with the highest viewership. As such, he embarked on the trek to seek media dash in covering the plight of the disabled. So you can see that he wants to cover the plight. So you are trying to seek to you want people to be aware of this. So the act of being aware is called attention. Okay. Soon after, articles were written about his cycling journey. The press also wanted dash him on television. So you could see when you have television and you also have people, the most logical thing that they will do is to interview him. So you are looking at asking people questions. They were curious about him and his cause. Eventually, books were written, dash even a film was made about him. So we are looking at media coverage, and these are two different but similar ideas. I'm sorry, these are two similar ideas, though their modality is different. Okay, so we'll use the word and to join them together. So and here is what we know as a conjunction. All of these efforts shed new dash on the topic of disability. So when you want to shed something, usually we will say shed new light. So this verb over here will inform me of my answer for question 61. So for those of you who don't know what shed new light means, this means that you want to draw attention to something. Okay? And the difficulties faced by people who experience disabilities. After Emmanuel's laborious trek across Ghana, he won a cash prize from a multinational sports corporation for his athletic performance. He used the prize dash to build schools which valued disabled students equally. So you can see here, they tell you there is a cash prize, which means related to finance, and you could say the prize money. Okay. His desire for equality was shaped dash his own past experiences. So this desire here is my outcome, and the cause is here his own past experiences, right? So we will use the word shaped by his own past experiences, or you want to use the word from, also can. The idea is we need to show the source of this outcome here. The outcome is your desire, the source or the cause is your past experiences. Okay, now let's look at question 64. As a child, he had wanted to be educated among dash non-disabled friends. So over here, these non-disabled friends are, or they belong to Emmanuel. So there's some kind of ownership, right? So you'll say among his non-disabled friends. Sadly, the school system in the past did not allow that. Emmanuel hoped that the schools that he has set up would enable children experiencing disability to attend school at no dash cost. So over here, we are looking at how the cost here, this requires a bit of context. With that is, for people with disabilities or they are physically challenged, they may need more resources to help them, right? So when we look at cost here, the cost is likely to increase for the disabled students. Okay, so we will say no added or no extra cost. Okay, so I will say that there isn't some kind of clue for our question 65. It's something that is assumed knowledge. It's more difficult, but I'm glad that we have gone through this during our TikTok so that you students who are taking your PSLE next year will be more confident. All right. Okay, so I'll just give everybody some time to take in the information for our Compre close. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat. Alright, everyone. If there are no further questions, let's take a look at our synthesis and transformation now. Question 66. It was snowing outside. The little girl refused to put on her jacket. So there are two contrasting ideas here. When it's snowing outside, it'll be cold and you expect people to put on the jacket. But the girl don't want to put on. It's quite straightforward. So when we have adult, you need to you have a comma to split up the information. So it will be, although it was snowing outside, the little girl refused to put on her jacket. Question 67. Daniel enjoys reading more than playing video games. So this question is the usual comparison of activities question. So you can see the word more here. That means reading is number one choice activity, playing video games is your second one. And when we have prefers, the linking word is to. So your number one activity would be at the start, followed by your second activity. So it will be Daniel prefers reading to playing video games. Right? Now let's take a look at question 68. Okay, I think there's a missing word here, which is instead of. So it will be, there are two activities that Amanda did or did not do. This is the activity that she did, right? So this is your reality. And your expectation is that you need to tidy her room. So when we have the word instead of, the expectation will be at the back while the reality will be at the start. So it will be Amanda went to watch the latest movie instead of tidying her room. Okay. Now let's take a look at the reported speech question. Sarah asked Lily, why did you choose this restaurant for dinner? So our 3 steps need to come in again. Highlight the words you need to change, edit, then write your answer. Did tells me it is past tense. You choose this. Okay. So it will be why she had chosen this restaurant for dinner. Okay, so that will be our answer. So some of you will be asking, why is it suddenly here is choose, then it becomes had chosen? So we need to look at the timeline. We have the participle, the past tense, and the present tense. So it's choose, chose, had chosen. So what happens during the transition from direct speech to reported speech is you'll move back one time period. So even though the word is choose, we need to identify the tense. I circled did here because this is a clue that that is in the past tense. So that means I will start from here, past tense, and I move back one time period to the past participle, which is had chosen. Okay, and that's how I derive the answer for question 69. Okay, let's take a look at question 70 now. Mrs. Ong baked a delicious cake. Mrs. Ong was satisfied. So we're looking at the change of the word form. Alright, so instead of the word satisfied, you want to change it to a noun here. So it'll be much to Mrs. Ong's satisfaction. She baked a delicious cake. Okay, and there'll be an answer for the synthesis and transformation. I'll just give everyone some time to take in the information I've just shared. And if you have any questions regards to English, please feel free to ask me. Alright, if there are no further questions, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon on Writers at Work, TikTok Live. I'm teacher Nathan, and I'll be going through another paper at 4:45. We'll be looking at Raffles Girls Primary 5 end of year paper also. Alright, so if you would like to practice your English and to be prepared for the Primary 5 exams next year in a more relaxed setting on our TikTok, please feel free to join me. Okay, and if you are also free tomorrow, please join me as I go through more P5 papers tomorrow morning starting from 10 a.m. too. Okay, if there are no further questions, I'll just see everybody in a bit. Bye bye.